Hello there guys, Daniel Childs back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Hope you're doing well and keeping safe on this Tuesday. In today's news video, I'm going to be reacting to the Champions League draw. Obviously tomorrow's game in the League Cup against Manchester City. Some massive transfer news regarding Endrick from Palmeiras, and then also some other January transfer window plans with Todd Boehly. But before we get into any of that good stuff, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. Also hit that like button because it helps new people find the content as well. I'm glad to say that Son of Chelsea is now a part of the 90 Min podcast network. The first podcast that was reviewing the Arsenal game is already up, and it's very easy to find a podcast. Go on any of your favorite podcast providers, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. I know it's on there as well. Just search Son of Chelsea and you will find it. So going to be more podcasts going up there as well, so please go and give it a rate and review. That really helps as well. But let's get into the news today. I think just reacting to the Champions League draw firstly, I think it was kind of a middle ground for Chelsea. Borussia Dortmund are obviously a team that provide a lot of quality, but it could have been much worse given that, of course, PSG got Bayern Munich. And I like the fact that it's an opponent that we haven't faced before in the Champions League. I find that really exciting. It's a bit of a shock to me that we haven't faced Borussia Dortmund before, given how both teams have been in the competition, how both teams have got quite far in recent years. So exciting that we're going to be there in February the first time, and of course the second leg at Stamford Bridge in early March. So it's a test for Graham Potter. We have no idea what Chelsea are going to look like when we get there. I think that it's always a little bit naive to kind of assume, just based on how we feel about the group of players at the moment and everything going on at Chelsea, which is quite negative at the moment, and kind of assume what it's going to be like in February, because so much can change, as we know. So we will see, but I think it's a decent draw. Moving on to something more soon for Chelsea. Tomorrow night at the Etihad, the League Cup third round finally taking place against Manchester City. It's a massive game. Graham Potter confirming today here via Adam Newson in the press conference that Omari Hutchinson and Lewis Hall are in the travelling squad for tomorrow's game. Several players had not been involved in the academy game against Spurs on Monday that Chelsea won quite convincingly, so that very much led to speculation that they would be involved. Of course, Hutchinson was involved in the squad against Brighton, and Lewis Hall played and started against Chesterfield in the FA Cup at the start of this year. So great that both of them will be involved. I don't know if either of them will start. We'll have to see, but hopefully can bring some excitement and some kind of fresh energy before the World Cup, because there was great disappointment, I think, against Zagreb that more young players weren't involved. And I think that was a real missed opportunity. So hopefully some can be involved tomorrow. But let's get into sort of more general, sort of bigger news. Endrick is a player that has been exciting, I think, for some fans, particularly on social media. I've seen his name more present, people demanding that Chelsea go out there and sign him. We were linked to the youngster over the summer. He's only 16 years old. As you can see here from Nazar Cancela, that Chelsea lead the Endrick transfer race, but face Real Madrid and PSG fight to land Brazilian wonderkid. The 16-year-old Palmeiras striker is facing unprecedented interest in his signature and has had several recent meetings with the West Londoners. Real Madrid believe they are the front runners for his signature, but several sources believe that Chelsea and PSG are also involved in an open race. The Blues are hoping that their financial might can tempt Brazil's biggest talent away from the well-trodden pathway to Madrid and towards Stamford Bridge. 9 goals in 12 appearances for Endrick this season. As I say, he was one of those names like Zakarian, who we spoke about last week in the transfer window, where Chelsea were looking to kind of mop up some of these young talents that are really growing and developing. And he is really flying at the moment, and there is kind of a feeling that it's kind of lazy to say the next Neymar, but Chelsea could have signed Neymar from Santos all those years ago, and there is kind of a bit of regret that Chelsea couldn't get that deal over the line at the time when I think Michael Emenalo was involved, I think 2010, so about 3 years before he eventually joined Barcelona. Endrick could be a massive talent, and he's already shown lots and lots of promise, and it kind of just leads into Chelsea's transfer strategy. We saw Casadei over the summer, Chelsea going in for him. Omari Hutchinson is one we got from Arsenal, and this is going to continue. I think it is. I even think like Carney Chukwuemeka, you can sort of throw into the hat of kind of a similar type of approach for a young player that they want to bring into the first team, how they want to build this first team and hopefully turn these youngsters into fully fledged first teamers and players that can really maybe make the club one in the coming years if we were to sell them on, but especially improve the first team with Graham Potter. So I think this could be really exciting if Chelsea could get this over the line. And people who have been watching him regularly say this is a deal Chelsea needs to get done, because he's just kind of maybe a generational talent. You know, I hate throwing out those lazy terms, but, you know, you look at what he's done already in his career and it is quite frightening, and it's quite clear Chelsea are going to be in there for his signature. Another player Chelsea could be in for in January in particular is Romeo Lavia. He was someone that was linked, the Southampton midfielder who scored against Chelsea. And here a quote from agent Hayden Dodge via Simon Phillips. Todd Boehly is about to put an extensive board together consisting of 3 people. The 3 people are Stuart Webber, Christopher Vival and Joe Shields. Obviously, Joe Shields has already been confirmed by Chelsea last week, along with Lawrence Stewart, who we spoke about on the channel. So that kind of structure is being built now. Stuart Webber obviously done a lot of good work with Norwich. He could be the sporting director or kind of fulfill that role at Chelsea if he was to come in. Maybe we're waiting for confirmation with Vival. We'll see how much that progresses. But he goes on to say in the second part of the quote that one of the players at the top of their list to bring in January will be Romeo Lavia from Southampton. I think January is going to be a big window. I think the pressure is kind of increasing on Chelsea at the moment, given the form being so poor. Looking in certain areas, particularly central midfield, that more and more feels like a pressing area that Chelsea have to invest in. So it's kind of unavoidable, I think, at this point. Money will be spent, and there kind of is an indication, a growing indication that Chelsea will be busy once again, and are not just going to sort of rest on their laurels after a very busy summer. The final thing to speak about here is a tweet from Matt Law regarding Chelsea going to be travelling to Abu Dhabi in December for warm weather training and will play at least one friendly with the opposition to be confirmed. I've seen quite a few clubs doing this. I believe Man United are doing similar. I think most top clubs will try and take the opportunity, although we do have a lot of heavy representation. I think most of our players, at least ones that consistently start for us, will be going to the World Cup in some form and capacity. And there are going to be some left behind, and it's important that those players continue to stay fit. And I think those players will be very important when we return against Bournemouth. I think that those are going to be those players who are going to be relied upon to start games a little bit more in that post-World Cup period, because we don't know how the World Cup is going to impact players. We don't know if Chelsea, knowing our luck, are going to get more injuries to key players. Players are going to have to be sort of phased back in as they usually are after a summer World Cup and we have pre-season. So it's going to be a really unpredictable time, and I think maybe for Graham Potter, if he can take some of those young players who aren't really involved, some of those fringe players who aren't going to the World Cup, and get them involved and try and plan something for post-World Cup, because Chelsea need to hit the ground running. Whatever happens in the last 2 games before the World Cup against Man City and Newcastle, specifically in the Premier League, Chelsea need to, as I say, really start the second half of the season positively, because things have not gone well recently, particularly if Chelsea want to make it into the Champions League. So it's big, and it'd be interesting to see who we face. It'd be interesting to see, you know, is there any availability to see those games and to see who goes out there and whether Potter can get some momentum going with a group of players. But as I say, it's not going to be all of the main players. That's just an unavoidable thing, unfortunately, at the moment. So we'll see how that impacts plans when Chelsea do return. Not on Boxing Day, on the 27th of December against Bournemouth in the Premier League. But that is it for today's news video. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.